Hey y'all, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Mogi Beth. For those of y'all who are new here, I own a 6-figure reselling business selling women's clothing on places like eBay and Poshmark, but today's video is all about my primary platform, and that is Poshmark. I've actually been selling and buying clothing on Poshmark for over 4 years now, so I've really seen the app evolve over time. But if you're new to Poshmark, make sure to sign up. It's a really great place to make money, and you can shop sustainably and affordably, which is fabulous. So use my code MOGIBETH for $10 off your very first purchase over there. But if you're watching this, you may already be selling on Poshmark. So today's video, we are going to discuss 5 hacks or somewhat hidden features and functionalities and how to use them to be a better reseller. If you're an experienced reseller who's already really active and you're engaging in the ongoing discussions taking place in the community, you may already know some or all of these hacks, but I think they're really important topics to further explore as resellers so that we're making sure we're maximizing efficiency. So let me know in the comments down below if you already knew these, and if so, how do you use them in your day-to-day reselling business? And finally, make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon to receive notifications, because we're releasing useful content about Poshmark, thrifting, and reselling each and every week. Okay, let's jump into it. The first hack, number 1, is how to find the listing date. You may have noticed that Poshmark doesn't readily make available the date that you posted the item anywhere on the app. You can see where the item was last shared, but you can't see when it was originally posted. One way you can access the information for your own listings is by downloading your inventory report, but having to download an updated one each and every time you want to access that information can be really annoying. So one hack that veteran resellers use is by looking at the listing photos URL. I actually learned this trick from my friend Jen over at A British Posher on Instagram a while back, and I use it fairly frequently just to quickly check my listing date of both my listings and of other people's listings. So I'm going to share my screen and show you how.
So what you'll do is open up any listing. It can be your listing or someone else's listing. Then you'll right click on any photo within the listing. So we'll right click here and then click open image in new tab. Then we'll go to that new tab and you'll see in the URL right here that it shares the date right in the middle of the URL. So in this instance, the date is January 22nd, 2021, and we can do that for other listings as well. So if we went here and looked at this listing date, we'd see this is July 16th, 2019.
Okay, so why would this hack be helpful? Well, I use it for a variety of reasons in my reselling business, but the 2 most common are in considering offers and in determining if it's time to relist my item. When I receive an offer that is a little bit too low than I would like to accept, I usually check my listing date to see if it's been 3 months or more. If it's been 3 months or more, I may choose, depending on the piece, to recheck comps to see if I need to reevaluate my expected sales price, because a lot can change on the reseller marketplace in 3 months. Resale value could have declined between now and then. The item could have become much more saturated. So by checking comps, I can reassess the situation, and I may decide to lower my expectations and then go ahead and accept that lower offer. But the other reason I think this little hack is super valuable is in determining if it's time to relist an item or not. Why would I want to relist an item on Poshmark? Well, let's take a look at Poshmark's search function, and I'm going to share my screen once again.
Okay, so let's start by just searching for something on Poshmark. So I'm going to search for something that I actually commonly look up on Poshmark, and that is Natalie Martin. So I'll go ahead and search. And as you can see, the search generation results that came up were sorted automatically by just shared. These listings are items that have been shared by the item's owner, which is why it's so important to share your own closet, and also why you shouldn't bother sharing any other people's closets. If you don't understand what I'm saying by that, then definitely make sure to watch my Poshmark tips video, which I'll link up on the screen, that goes over the logic behind that. Many shoppers, including myself when I search for Natalie Martin, are looking for a particular item. So they'll oftentimes change the sort feature from just shared to just in. And I don't have any data on this, but I think it's fairly safe assumption to say that this is probably Poshmark's second most popular search feature. So it's definitely something that you want to prioritize in your business. And it makes sense because often shoppers want to see what's new and fresh to the marketplace. So when we sort by just in, what we'll see are listings that have been listed most recently. And you can also tell that because the likes are fewer under here, meaning that they are new to the marketplace. This is definitely something that you'll want to take into consideration with your Poshmark relisting strategy.
So it's actually a really good idea as a reseller on Poshmark to relist inventory that's been listed for a while in order to appear at the top of the just in search. And there are two ways to relist inventory. The first is to copy and paste everything manually into a new listing. And then the second is to use the fairly recent copy listing feature on Poshmark. However, one thing to note with the copy listing feature is that your listing must be 60 days old in order to affect your just in search ranking. So you may want to use that little hack just to see if your listing is 60 days old or not. One important thing to note if you use the drafts feature on Poshmark is that the date within the photo URL is technically the date that the listing was first drafted. However, that 60-day time clock for the copy listing feature only actually starts once you've listed the item. Let me share my screen and show you exactly what I mean.
All right, so this is a listing that I've had in my drafts for quite a while. So I'm going to go ahead and list it. Okay, I've added my photos. Going to update it a little bit. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and list these jeans. All right, so if we look at, let's go to these older photos here. If we look at this photo here, we'll see that the date of the URL is January 15th, 2021. So pretty old. And actually, this is the case for these photos that I just recently added as well. So all of these dates are going to be January 15th. That's how long this item has been sitting in my drafts. However, if I were to search for, let's just search for this girlfriend Helena with my Sharona, we'll see our listing here and just shared. That makes sense. But then when we sort by just in, our listing is still here as well. And in fact, if I open up the second highest ranked listing and I were to look at the date on the URL, it's much more recent at May 14th, even though the URL listing is much more recent for this listing than mine is still ranking higher in just in. So just because my URL date is from a long time ago, that doesn't affect my just in ranking.
So this is something you definitely want to keep in mind. If you use that drafts feature and leave drafts in there for a while, the URL date might not actually be a good indicator of that 60-day time frame. And I hope that makes sense, but this is also good information to know so that if you do use the drafts feature, you know that that's not going to affect your just-in performance, which is great. So let's move on to our second hack. Hack number 2 is mark comments as spam. I get this question a lot in my DMs, so I think this is something that a lot of newer resellers don't know about, so I definitely wanted to cover it. So if someone spams your listing or leaves a comment that you want to be removed, you can mark it as spam and it will automatically be removed. I think this is only true for sellers who have reached Poshmark ambassador status, or at least that's what I heard, but I'm not entirely sure about that. So if you do know, please let me know in the comments down below, because if that's the case, that's really the only valuable thing I can think of that would make Poshmark ambassador status even worth it. But we've all had comments such as these ones appear as soon as we list an item, and these are 100% spam and not real. So it's much better to just mark them as spam and make them disappear as soon as possible. But then there are other comments that aren't necessarily spam that you may want to make disappear as well. For instance, when someone discusses publicly different offers that you've sent them, or when someone is just plain rude. And frankly, this is your place of business, so while I think it's definitely prudent to address any appropriate question or comment from potential customers, sometimes people are just there to complain or worse, and I definitely use this feature in those cases, and I think it's a good idea just to mark those inappropriate comments as spam and move on. Okay, so hack number 3 how to check if your buyer is a repeat buyer. And this is something that I believe Poshmark added fairly recently within the past year, and I think a lot of resellers don't know about this feature. So nurturing repeat buyers is definitely such a great way to increase sales, but unfortunately, Poshmark doesn't make this data super accessible yet. It'd be really helpful if they did add that to the sales page just to alert us when we do have a repeat buyer, especially since this is information that they track. But at least for now, it is accessible on the app itself instead of again having to download it from the inventory report. So let me show you how to access that information.
For this example, to protect the buyer's identity, I'm going to have to cover a lot of the information, but hopefully I can share enough with you in order to get the gist. So here I am at an order, and typically on the right hand side of the order you would see the order date, the order number, and the buyer. And so in order to access the information that would tell you whether or not this buyer was a repeat buyer, I'd first click on the buyer, and then it would take me straight to their closet, and from their closet I would click on the bundle. So I'm just going to skip to the bundle just to protect this buyer's identity. Okay, so I am now in a bundle with this buyer, and first thing I'm going to do is on the top right hand corner where this little arrow is, I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to click switch to sell view. Next, I'll click view style card, and this is where you can see whether or not they've purchased anything from you in the past. Typically what the style card would look like is the top would have their sizing, then their purchases from you, and then any love notes they've given. And so if there's more than one purchase here, that means that they have been a repeat buyer with you.
Obviously and unfortunately, retrieving this information is not efficient and it is somewhat time consuming, but if you have a small closet with only like one or a few sales a day, I think this could be a really great opportunity to differentiate your customer service from that of other closets. And this is actually something that we're exploring within our business, and on my Instagram page, I just wrote a post about this on the day that this video is going live, and I'll link it down below in the description as well. So be sure to check that out and let me know if you have any sort of strategy when it comes to increasing your repeat customers. Honestly, since this is something that we're just now trying out, I'm not sure if it will stick, but I do want to try it out for a month, and then after that pause and reevaluate and reassess and do a cost benefit analysis to see if it makes sense. If you want to continue the conversation about repeat customers, head over to my Instagram and check out my new strategy in the post. It'll be linked below in the description. Next hack. Number 4 is something that actually one of y'all made me realize, and that is how to resend an offer after you've already sent that offer. Typically on Poshmark, once you send an offer to a potential buyer, you can't send them another offer that's less than 10% off your previous offer within a 90-day period. Does that make sense? It's a little bit wordy. I want to give an example. Let's say I sent you a 20% off offer on a pair of Birkenstocks. I couldn't send you another 20% off offer or even a 25% off offer within a 90-day period. I could only send you a 30% off offer or more, 30 plus, 30, 40, 50, within that 90-day period. However, sometimes potential buyers just miss the offer that you sent and they want to purchase at that price, or they're willing to purchase it for just a little bit more off. So let's say for instance that you sent an item that's listed at $100 and you sent out offers for $80 with $4.99 shipping, and then a potential buyer leaves a comment that they'd be willing to do $75 with $4.99 shipping. What I used to do is just politely let them know that I couldn't send another offer, but if they sent me one, I would go ahead and accept. However, obviously that puts more friction between them and the potential sale, and that's something we really don't want to do. Ideally, we want to make the purchase process as frictionless as possible. So actually, when I mentioned this in a video a few months ago, one of y'all commented and let me know that there's actually a hack to this issue. So if I can find that comment, I want to give credit where credit is due and put it here. But if I can't find it, I just want to say thank you if it was you. It was definitely a very helpful comment, and I always really appreciate learning from y'all as well. Okay, so let me share my screen to show you this hack.
All right, so again with this example, I have removed the potential buyer's name just to protect protect their identity. But in this case, I have sent them an offer for 20% off with discounted shipping, and they're requesting 20% off with free shipping. So since an offer has already been sent to them, what I'll need to do in order to send them that offer is edit my listing, and then I'll need to drastically change the size. This will constitute a major edit in Poshmark size, so Poshmark will cancel all outstanding offers in order to protect potential buyers from a bait and switch. So I'll go ahead and update my listing. This update will then remove all outstanding offers, so I will then edit the listing again, return it to the correct size. Next, I'll go into a bundle for this potential buyer. I'll share the item to their closet and I'll be able to send them a custom offer. So in this case, 72 with free shipping. Next, I'll send over a little note letting them know that I have sent over an offer, and this has a much better conversion rate than asking them to send you an offer. And it's also really handy if you cross-list and need to delist something with outstanding offers. So let's look at an example like that. Okay, so for instance, I recently sold this Astor jacket over on eBay. And so if I were just to go in here and try to mark it as not for sale, I would receive this error message saying, sorry, this listing cannot be marked as not for sale because you have active offers on it. So what I'll have to do in order to mark the item as not for sale so it doesn't sell because it already sold on another platform is go in here, change the size drastically, and again, you can change other details, but this is what I always default to. And then I'll save it, update it. This will remove all offers. So I'll go in and edit again. I'll change the size back just in case I have to ever relist this item for any reason. And then I'll mark it as not for sale. And ta-da! Now it is not for sale and I don't have to worry about selling it twice. This is somewhat frustrating and time consuming, but the other solution, which eBay uses, is to make the listing uneditable while there are outstanding offers, and that's also super frustrating. However, with eBay, you can easily unlist listings that have outstanding offers, which is nice. So there is a trade-off, but let me know in the comments down below, which system do you prefer, eBay's or Poshmark's? But anyways, back to Poshmark hacks.
All right, time for the last one on this list, and this last one isn't really a true hack or kind of a workaround like some of the others on this list, but it's more of a hack for keyword research and style research, and that is the keyword feature on Poshmark. This is actually a new feature to Poshmark, and it's a really useful one for resellers who are willing to put in a little elbow grease into research, which if you've taken my course, you know that's one major thing that I think sets apart the high achieving resellers from the average achieving ones. But let me show you exactly what I mean with this screen share.
All right, so let's search for a brand that I mentioned in my recent 10 summer bolo brands video, which I'll link up on the screen in case you haven't seen that yet. And we'll go with Road. So I'll search for Road Resort. And so along this new keyword feature, Poshmark will automatically tell me the most common keywords that are searched for within this brand on Poshmark. So in this instance, we're actually able to see that dresses are the most searched for category within this brand, followed by tops and then skirts. But then also we're able to see styles that are often searched for, which can be really helpful. So in this case, we're able to see Ella dress, Nala dress, and even damier top and pink prism, which is pretty specific, which leads me to believe this is definitely a sought after item.
This information is incredibly valuable because higher search volume typically means higher demand, and as resellers we're always looking for items that have a quicker sell-through rate, and a higher demand typically means a quicker sell-through rate. I mean, this could be used in so many ways, and the cool thing is that this can really be used for bolo brands and bread and butter brands alike. In our course relaunch, I'm actually planning on going into more detail about how I use this in my business, so if you've already purchased the course, you'll actually have access to that course relaunch later this this summer, which I'm really excited about. But I encourage you all to play around with this feature. It's also just an excellent way to learn general keywords that potential buyers are searching for on Poshmark, eBay, and beyond. Okay, well that's my video for 5 Poshmark hacks. What did you think? Let me know in the comments down below. We just hired a social media assistant for our business, which is so exciting, and our goal is to become the ultimate reseller resource. So if there's any way we can improve or provide information you're wanting to learn more about, we love hearing suggestions, so also leave that down below. All right, and finally, if you like this video, please give it a big old thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I will see y'all in the next one. Love y'all. Bye.